Alright, what is good about you by Bar Times 2, and today we're back here on Fallout 4. So, I noticed that you guys really enjoyed the settlement build video that I had just previously released, so I figured why not show some settlement build tips and tricks for some, to help you guys understand how the building system works a little bit better in Fallout 4, some advanced controls, and just some cool inspiration for your own builds. So, I'm not going to take up too much of your time today, just kind of want to go through this quickly to help you guys get back into the game. If you've been playing for a while, maybe you forgot some mechanics, or if you're brand new to the series, welcome. Welcome. I hope you guys have been enjoying the Fallout TV show. I absolutely loved it. I fully finished it twice already, on the edge of my seat, and we're waiting for season 2. So I figured, why not just go ahead and showcase some things to help you guys if you're new to the game and you're just now getting into it. Hopefully these tips and tricks will help you out. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into the video. Alright, so the first thing I wanted to get into today is the infinite build limit glitch. Now this is one of the most requested things because it's so easy to fill up your build limit in any settlement, honestly. Especially with Sanctuary, there's so much here to try to build up and everything just to try to make it look good that you can fill up your build limit really, really fast. So the best way to get around that is to take just some items you don't really care about. I'm gonna get rid of this minigun, 4 of these pack automatic rifles from Nuka World, things of that nature, right? Now this works best with large items because obviously they're larger. I don't know really why it does, but you're gonna go into your build mode, and you can do one of two things. If you wanted to keep the item, you can just store it in your workbench, but I honestly like just collecting all the scrap that you get from it, so you can also scrap them as well if you don't really care about them. And if you notice in the top right of the screen where the size bar is yellow, once you do this a couple of times, it will go down gradually. And again, we'll store one just to store it as well. It also works. You can store them in the workbench. You can do this with a bunch of things. Like I said, for some reason, the larger the item, the better. I think gamma guns and stuff like that also take down the bar faster. Armor does help as well. You can fully clear out your bar a couple of times if you like to, but I wouldn't recommend doing this too much, because if you clear your bar twice or more, I think it is, and then you keep building up and filling up that bar, eventually your FPS here is just going to absolutely tank, unless you've got an extremely beefy PC. And this also works on console. Don't be afraid, this isn't something that's just a PC exclusive thing. You can do this on console as well, but I just strongly recommend to do it at your own risk, because after a while you will start to see some FPS drops. Alright, so my next little tip or trick isn't really, I guess, a trick or anything like that. It's just one of my personal tips to kind of help you spice things up in your settlements, and that is honestly just building into pre-existing buildings, or onto pre-existing buildings. We'll get more in depth in that later, but I think the best way to make use of that size limit is honestly just to build into pre-existing homes and stuff like that, which is honestly what I love doing. A lot of people will clean them up and whatnot, but I do like the rustic feel. And I think the absolute best way to get the most bang for your build limit is to just build upon something that is already there, right? Instead of building something brand new, fresh. It's obviously a nice and a great way to spice up your settlements if you want to build something fresh, with a full new, basically a brand new home or a house, But I think reusing some of the things that are already here is just so much better sometimes, because that's really the Wasteland way, right? Take for example Diamond City. They built into all these cool things. There's some of the dugouts are made into a bar, stuff like that. They built into those pre-existing structures, right? And that's honestly probably the easiest and best way to go about it if you were in that real life situation. It'd be a lot easier and faster to build onto something already existing than it would be to just build something brand new, right? So I feel like that's the best way to really go about things. And as an example, this was also my build video. I'm sure you guys remember. Cap Corner is my little general store vendor. So I've got this guy signed in here, just kind of decorated it up to make it look like a nice little general store. A few of my items have fallen off, obviously. Don't know where they went. They've disappeared into the void, but that's quite all right. And that's honestly such a good way to, I don't know, just spice up things and kind of fill up those empty homes. I need to do it with a couple more, obviously, but we're getting there. I need some more ideas, okay? But yeah, it's just the best, I think, use of the space. And you can do this in a lot of other camps as well. But yeah, So there's not really a whole lot going on here, but I do have a few things. Like I kind of converted this into a storage room. So it's just like the small little things that you can do to kind of spice up certain houses that are kind of dull, you know, and also not have to worry about taking up too much of that build limit, even though we, you know, kind of expanded on the infinite build glitch. Like I said, you don't want to do that too often, because if you start building up way too much, you'll get a massive FPS glitch. So this is kind of working hand in hand with the infinite build limit to kind of make sure that you're still going to have a nice looking settlement, but you're not tanking your performance in the process. So I think this is honestly the best way to go about doing that. Now with that, we can go ahead and move on to the next tip. All right, so I think one of the most important things that you can do in this game that's not really talked about settlement-wise is create a supply line. And if you don't really know what that is, essentially, the supply lines that you create in your camp, right? You can create a supply line by assigning a settler to the supply line. And here's just an example of some of mine right now. You can connect all of your settlements together, right? So I've got Sanctuary connected all the way down here to Vault 88, which is connected to another settlement, which is connected to another settlement. These are the only 4 settlements I've been working on building so far, so that's why I only have 4 of them connected, but there's easier ways to do it as well. You can see that on your map by hiding or showing supply lines, and you can assign a settler that just doesn't have a job already to a supply line by just going up to them and clicking the assigned button. And the reason for doing this is honestly just so all of your settlements can share your workbench. So basically, all the items that you put in workbench at one workbench at a settlement will go into the next one. And I could be wrong on this because this whole system is very, very confusing. Honestly, I've spent many times looking on Reddit to kind of remind myself how it all works. But I believe that you only share back and forth between like 1 or 2. So essentially, Sanctuary and my Vault 88 down here can share back and forth. Vault 88 and Sunshine Tidings Co-op can share back and forth, but I don't think that Sanctuary actually directly shares with Sunshine Tidings. Please let me know in the comments if that's incorrect, because like I said, I cannot remember for the life of me. I tried to do a little bit of research before this, but it is so confusing to even read online. But yeah, I'm pretty sure like the only settlements that really share that workbench are the ones that are like back and forth with each other, but I could be wrong. They could all share just off of that one stem line. But it is something very helpful. I've been working on a pretty massive project for Vault 88, which is why I have Sanctuary combined with them, because I normally scrap all of my items at Sanctuary. It's my main player home. So in order to, you know, not have to run around dragging some junk and some supply shipments with you back and forth between the settlements, it's a lot easier to just create a supply line so you can work off that same workbench in both settlements. If you see what I'm saying here, it's a lot less time consuming, a lot less loading screens and fast traveling around if you just share that combined settlement. As well as if you find a settlement that you just don't want to build on at all, but it has a bunch of scrap you can use, you can just throw all that scrap in that workbench instead of taking it home and putting it in your workbench, if that makes sense as well. So there's quite a few things that make this really, really helpful, as well as making caps off of it. If you've got a settlement that has a lot of water purifiers, you can connect it to one of your main settlements, grab all the purified water from here, and sell it to one of the vendors at your main settlement or at Diamond City. So there's quite a few benefits to it. And like I said, please in the comments, if you know if it's any different than how I explained it, please let me know. Okay. I'm just kind of going with my prior knowledge here, even though I did try to look it up beforehand. It's kind of hard to find. But yeah, with that being said, we can go ahead and move on to the next tip now. All right, so on to the next 2 tips here. One is small and one is actually a fairly intricate one. So if you didn't already know, you can actually unlock a bunch of building supplies and materials in-game. You don't have to buy a lot of the Creation Club stuff to find more items to build with. Every issue you collect of the Picket Fences magazine will unlock, I think, 1 or even a couple of items. There are lists online for which one unlocks what. And there is also completing certain quests can unlock new things. Completing certain DLCs can unlock new things. I just recently completed all of Nuka World, so I can build all of these things from each of the Nuka World parks, which is pretty cool as well. So yeah, there's a ton of items you can find, collect, and unlock as you go. It's very similar to Fallout 76 in that way, but you don't really have to get notes. You just, after you complete something, it just auto unlocks. So it unlocks quite a few cool items, especially if you have all the DLCs. There's quite a few things you can really mess around with to improve your build. Now, as for the next tip here, it's going to be one of those things that's a little bit, I think, not a lot of people know about. This also works in Fallout 76 if you're also playing that game, are the building controls. So obviously you have your spinning controls. You can walk around with the item that you want to place. You can run around with it as well and go up and down. But there are some advanced building controls you can also do as well by selecting your build button, whether it be the A button or X button on controller, or I think it's the E button on mouse and keyboard, or maybe the right click, I can't remember. By holding that down and moving your left stick, or just the move button, you can move it around into certain places. You can still spin it. And there is also ways to go up and down. So if you hit the right bumper, it'll reset it to where you had it originally. And by holding down the left bumper and moving your left stick up and down, you can change the height of the object, which is more helpful for things that are actually, you know, going into the ground, like this ice cream cone, for example. By holding down the build button and the left bumper, you can make it show how much you want actually coming out of the ground, as opposed to actually just doing it like this. It's a little bit easier, and you can kind of do it while not moving around to get a more precise fitment of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, just a few of those advanced controls that really help you out when building in really tight areas, especially if you can't really see something too far away. You know, you can do that as well. And another thing that I think a whole lot of people just don't realize or they forget about is after you place down an item, depending on how far away you pick it up from, kind of depends on like how you can see it, which again, by holding down the build button, you can bring it closer to you and do it that way instead of backing out and picking it up. But you can also back out and pick it up. So you pick it up like this, obviously it's gonna be really hard to see where you're placing it, but sometimes you have to do that while you're indoors. So if you really need to, then you can just move it away from you by holding down on the build button and moving it back and forth. You kind of get that perfect fitment that you want. So I hope that helps. It took me a really long time. I think I was honestly playing Fallout 4 for a couple of years before I even realized you could do that. Just because I'd never even thought about it. You know, it's one of those hidden mechanics that they don't really talk about much in the game. So hopefully, if you know you're new to the game, hopefully that helps you out quite a bit, because it just helped me a lot in building my settlements over the years, especially with foundations, because foundations are one of the hardest things to get to fit perfectly right. For example, some of these floors, you know, trying to get them up and down, and like while you're trying to snap them perfectly, while you're moving left and right, sometimes it'll, you know, make it all janky and wonky. So just by holding down on the build button and, you know, doing it that way makes it a whole lot easier and a lot more precise. So hopefully that helps you. And we can go ahead and move on to the next tip now. All right, so this next building tip is a little bit more well-known amongst the Fallout community, but like I said, again, if you are new to the game, you may not know about this, and it will help you out a lot. Fallout 4's building is very janky at times. Sometimes when things should fit, they won't. Like, I feel like this bathtub really shouldn't be colliding with much here. It should fit in between all of these things, but for some reason, it just still will not let you build it there. And sometimes as well, if the item is floating a little bit, it just won't let it happen. Or if it's a little bit too close to some of these walls, it won't let you do it as well. So the best way to do that is to go ahead and take your item, just place it down. You're gonna go in decorations, floor coverings, and then just pick any of the rugs. And this is called the rug glitch, of course. I use the mat. Some of the longer ones have a little bit better things as well. Like the bigger the mat you use, the bigger the collision area is going to be. And I'll kind of explain that more in a moment. But let's say we wanted to put that in there. If you place this just barely on the mat at all, you can then pick up the entire thing. You can also, if there's a couple of things beside it as well, if you hold down on the build button, it'll pick up everything in that area. So if you wanted to move like an entire building like this over here, right? If I wanted to move this entire thing, I can just hold down on the build button and pick up the entire thing. It's like a blueprint. right? So let's get rid of this extra mat over here now. And let's take this inside, and I'll kind of show you guys how it works. So essentially, you can merge pretty much any item you want. We could put this TV inside the bathtub if we wanted now, because this rug is essentially where the collision is. So all of the collision for the bathtub is gone, and the only collision we have now is with the rug. So we can move this inside the wall if we wanted to. And this opens up so many possibilities for other building ideas just by merging things into them, right? There's so many things you can do. You could put a sentry turret in a bathtub, sentry turret in a shopping cart like you find around in the Commonwealth. Just many things you can do here. So if I wanted to just place this bathtub right here, I could. And then you can either leave the mat there if you want, or you can get rid of the mat. And when you do get rid of the mat, the item does drop into the floor just a tad bit. So do keep that in mind. You will lose a little bit of how it was sitting. So now we have a lamp in a bathtub, and that is such a useful glitch to use. And there are a couple of items that it works with as well, which I can show you now. All right, so if you have all of the DLCs, you can go into the warehouse structures, go all the way over to the right to miscellaneous, and use these steel beams or posts. These are also very helpful. They work just like the mat glitch does, but you can actually move things up and down. It kind of gives you, because this is one of those items that doesn't really have collision with the ground, you can move it, up and down, in and out of the ground. It'll help you get the perfect height that you need for some random objects that you might have. So, for example, let's say I wanted to put these seats like kind of in the air. Or even better, let's say I wanted to make a bunk bed, right? Now, of course, there are some that you can get from the Creation Club, but this makes things slightly better. So, depending on how high up you want this bed to be, you will move the post up or down. So, let me see here. We're going to move it down to about, we'll say right here. And then we're going to scoot it nice and close to the post. Hold down on the build button to pick it up. That picks up everything, and now you can go up and down however you'd like. So we'll keep that there. We'll place another bed here. Oh, you need to place it a little bit further away. Otherwise, it'll pick them up both, like we had explained earlier. Pick it up just like that. And then again, the collision is not reliant on the bed anymore. It is now reliant on the post. So you can just place it down however far you'd like it. You got to mess with it a few times to get it completely perfect, but after you've got that ready, how you want it, you can just snap it right into place, and now you've got your own little makeshift bunk bed. And there are a ton of uses for this as well. A lot of people will use a mesh between the rug and the post glitch for building onto Sanctuary, like kind of rebuilding the houses. There are plenty of videos on that, and I'll actually link one of the videos that I found the most helpful in the description. You can check him out. But they'll take some of the posts like we had just talked about. They'll put a mat beside them. And you can also connect all these mats as well. So let's say we'll do something kind of like this, right? And then we'll just pick a random, we'll use a mannequin. So now we can connect all these together. Let me move this down a little. All right. Move all these over. Now we can do something like this. Let me stand back. So now we can do something like this, right? A floating mannequin. We could have somebody standing up there, right? There's just a ton of things you can do with this by combining all these glitches together. And like I said, it's just really dependent on kind of what you want to do. So I mean, if we want to make them stand on top of that, we can do that as well. Get rid of all the mats. And boom, now he's standing on the mailbox. Right? You probably wouldn't be able to do that before because it doesn't let you place things like this that high in the air. So there's a ton of things you can do. You can make, like I said, if you wanted to rebuild some of the Sanctuary houses, you can make a full floor plan for them and then just place them, like placing brand new walls right up against it. There's just a ton of ideas and things you can do with that. And I will go over one more thing with this. It's a little bit more complex to mess with, but it also is very helpful for your builds. All right, so another thing I did fail to mention earlier, you can use a ton of different steer objects, such as this ashtray, which is a little bit more precise for things. Again, it's the same. It works the exact same way as the mat glitch. You're able to steer it with a little bit more precision. You can just put it right into the wall if you'd want to, or however you want to do it. And then the ashtray and it kind of stays where it's at. Now, for things that do sink into the ground with the mat glitch, there is a way to help out with that. I can kind of show you again how the mat makes things fall into the ground. We'll just place the cigarette machine on top of the mat, and then we'll place it indoors, delete the mat, and then I'll show you that it sinks into the ground, right? See that? Delete the mat, and then the legs of the cigarette machine snap into the ground a little bit, right? And if you don't want that, it is really annoying sometimes when you've got an object that's pretty large and you kind of want to see the bottom of. To actually stop that from happening, you can use the campfire. And for some reason, since the campfire has like outside meshes, whenever you drop something into the ground, it'll actually stay where it's at. Oh, I move a little bit further away. So yeah, just by placing this on top of this campfire, doesn't matter how far up it is on the campfire, once you place it indoors and then delete the campfire, it will stand on actual ground and it won't sink into the ground like with the mat. So that is just another really cool thing to help out with. And the ashtray does a very similar thing, but the campfire is more for very meticulous things, like when you're placing things on top of like hills and stuff like that. When there's like a little divot in the ground, I don't know if there's any inside this building or not, but a little divot in the ground or something where there's uneven terrain and like there's a leg that's like kind of sticking up in the air off of this, the campfire helps out a lot with that. So there's another little tip for you. And now we're getting into the last section of the video, which I'll kind of try to knock out pretty quick for you guys. All right, so my personal favorite decoration item in the game is not anything in the build mode at all. It is actually items directly from your inventory. I think it adds the most spice to your camps or your settlements, and it adds such another layer than anything else does. If you just purely and strictly only build with the build items, your whole camp, or I'm so used to playing 76, your whole settlement is just not going to look as cool or as filled out. These shelves would be empty. There would just be nothing on them, and it would just look really bare and bare bones, So just you can literally, anything you collect in the game, you can drop out of your inventory, and you can move it with one of two ways. So you can either walk up to it, hold down on whatever your take button is, and you can pick it up that way. You can spin it with the triggers, and that's pretty much about all you can do with that. So it's really hard to get it really precise. You can obviously do it that way as well, just by taking it. You can also throw it by hitting your reload button if you need to get it somewhere, pretty precise. Yeah. Another way, which is kind of the easier way of doing things, if there's an item that you can't really spin all that well, you can actually select these items in build mode and move them around that way as well. So now you unlock a spin characteristic of it. And you can actually place a lot of these items pretty much anywhere you would like. You do just have to be careful that when you're kind of just... Here, let me put it back on the ground. The big thing you have to be careful with when you're moving these items is collision with other items, because you can knock things off, move them around like that. So you don't want to do that. And obviously, if you have things standing up, you don't want to walk into them, because then you're going to throw them off as well. But it is a very helpful thing as well to do. You can obviously, like I said, move these things around just by holding down on them. If they're not all the way tilted to where you need them, you can just, drop them. You move them around. You need to drop them. That works as well.
One that ends without an empty stomach.
Well, all right. But yeah, I think that's honestly just the absolute best way to decorate your camps, and I will kind of expand on that a little bit real quick. Let me run over to my player home. So yeah, further expanding on the items, we've got a ton of things in here as well to kind of just fill out the room. It almost feels claustrophobic in here. We've got a recorder in here, a nice little desk fan to blow onto the bed, keep you cool at night. And then we've got, you know, some helmets that we've just got stored up. We've got all the holotape games over here. I think one fell. I don't know where it went. We got some hats. And then another major thing that is also very, very cool to add onto your settlement is just displaying all of your cool weapons. You can do that by just using any of the display boards. So I've got a lot of my weapons that I've either loved using throughout my playthrough, or just really special items from certain quests. Like this is from Far Harbor, I believe, and there's some cool rare items that I found along the way. And, you know, the Silver Shroud submachine gun, and then some like pretty broken legendaries that I found, and just stuff like that. And then also collecting all of your rare items and displaying them is another good way to go about spicing up your camp. All of your magazines that you've collected, all of your bobbleheads. I'm a hoarder, so I like collecting rare items. You got display stands. I believe these come with the DLC. I could be wrong with the mannequins. I think they do. Rare junk items. A couple of these have fallen through. Don't know where they went. I think they're like in the ground somewhere, but it is what it is. So all of your rare items that you found, and you throw them in display cases and stuff, right? A lot of cool items. I think it's just the best way to spice up your camp. And again, like I said, you can, anything you find out in the wasteland, you can just drop out of your inventory. Even notes, holotapes, anything, right? You gotta be careful with really small items like that, because they can fall through the ground and it's just really hard to get them back, so you just gotta be careful with them. But literally anything. Anything you could want. Toss it all on the ground. I don't know why that's stolen.
You like old stuff, don't you?
Oh well. But yeah, I think it just adds a whole new layer to building in your camp. And I guess there's one last thing I could add into. There's plenty and plenty of small little things you can do here and there. Just really spice up things. And this, again, goes along with building the pre-existing places, you know, kind of making them their own. As you can notice, you could obviously use like the steel beam glitch or the matte glitch to throw in some windows on some of these homes that are already here. But my personal favorite thing to do is actually throw paintings on them and kind of block off the windows that way. Most of the time you're going to find paintings that are like the exact size of the window that you need. And I think it's just the coolest way to do it. Like in here we have a picture of a mountain with our vault on it, Vault 111, because it's up on the mountain up there. And we've got a little home right here, you know, to make it seem a little bit more homey. And you can also do that with what we saw on the outside, like flags and stuff like that. So it just helps you, trying to help you with some inspiration, you know, obviously. Make things a bit more cool. And again, with displaying items, over here we've got our scrap-on area. All of our cool outfits and all of our cool power armors are over here on display. I just think it's so cool to kind of just show off everything you've collected, and you can kind of visually see how your journey went from the beginning to the end, right? All of your collectible items. And I think that's one of the best parts of this game, is just all of the cool things you can collect, all the rare things you can find. Just displaying them really more, it personalizes your build a bit more. And getting to the very, very last tip, honestly, one of the coolest things that I think is honestly overlooked quite a bit in personalizing your settlement while we're here. Every single person that you have in your settlement, you can actually customize how they look. So all you've got to do is talk to them, and you'll be able to trade with them. By trading with them, you can take something out of your inventory, whether it be a weapon. If you want to put a space helmet on them, you just equip it to them, and now they've got a space helmet on. So that's why I have all these people dressed up as they are, to kind of fit what they're doing in the settlement. Whether this guy's a bartender, you know, he's got a little chef hat on. She makes the drink, so I wanted her to dress up as well. He's our general store manager. He's our doctor. That guy cuts our hair. Like, it's just, there's a whole another layer to it, if you will.
It's as simple as that. Let's trade some things.
And as I said, you could also throw on some weapons. So if you want to give them a weapon to use, they will use that weapon. You do have to give them a little bit of ammo with it, because they run out quite fast. So you want to do that, you can do that as well, and then boom. Now they've got a weapon that they can help defend the settlement with, and they've got some drip on as well. So I'm sure I've missed some things out there. Let me know any of your cool building tips or tricks that you like to use. And also please give me some inspiration for what I should do with some of these empty houses. If you've watched my previous settlement video, I have changed things up quite a bit since last week. Turned this into the town hall. I don't know why. Trashcan Carlos Brahmin is in here. He's just kind of chilling. But yeah, we made a little courtroom. Still expanding on it, but just let me know what else I should do with some of these empty buildings. I've already got a police station and pretty much all of the vendors I need. I just don't know what else I want to do with some of, I think, 4 or 5 of the empty homes I have left to mess with. Give me some ideas. But with that, I hope this helps you guys out. And I hope you guys have a great, wonderful rest of your day. It's been your Bar Times 2. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.